Yesterday, I found myself thinking about what it means to glow up and if I felt like I'd glowed up over the past few years. And I can honestly say that I have made so many strides when it comes to just developing as a person and essentially having a glow up. I don't think a glow up is entirely aesthetic. It doesn't have to look like you're living one life, because glow ups can be very personal, very internal, not always external. And while I can say that I'm not 100% where I want to be just yet, I know for a fact that I have done so much to just become a better version of myself. I've truly come such a long way, and I just found myself wondering, like, at what point does a glow up really begin? Now, I consume a lot of self-development content and level up content here on YouTube, like a lot of it. And one constant that I've seen other people talk about in their videos that I have found to be most true is that the foundation for glowing up really begins with isolation. And I do not mean negative isolation where you lock yourself up in a dark room away from the world and just wallow in depression and anxiety and you look like Bella from that one scene in that movie. Like, no, that's not the type of isolation that I'm talking about. The kind of isolation that I'm referring to is much more positive, and it involves making that conscious decision to spend more time with yourself, just for self-reflection, personal development, or even just for rest, honestly. And I wish that I could say that my isolation period was initially a conscious effort. I don't really think that it was. I personally believe that God really forced me into an isolation period, and although it was really rough at the beginning, I'm so extremely grateful for that. I feel like God removed me from scenes and situations that I had no business being in, first of all, and forced me to kind of spend time with myself and get to know myself. And I feel like that was truly the starting point for my glow up journey. So even though it didn't start off intentional, it became intentional over time. And that's kind of what I want to talk about in this video, how you can use isolation intentionally to your benefit to help you to level up. Quick backstory. I know I can be quite a yapper, so I'll try not to yap, but basically I moved to Miami when I was 17, went there for university, and as soon as I got there, I already had a friend at the college that I was going to, and so naturally I clung to her. I met her friends, and her friends became my friends, and all of us are still like one big family up until this day. I spent every waking hour with these people. I also spent every sleeping hour with these people because we were roommates. Like, I don't know how I got there and we ended up being roommates. It's whatever. This is something that I used to be a little bit embarrassed to admit, but I guess I'm not so embarrassed anymore because it's not the case anymore. But I used to be very, very malleable. I used to be the type of girl that would just kind of go with what everybody else was going with, whether I liked it or not. And I think it was really big people pleaser energy. In addition to being a bit of a people pleaser, I just wanted to, I guess, feel accepted. I wanted to be cool. And a lot of the things that we would do or the places that we would go to, I thought these were all things that I enjoyed up until graduation, when we all, not went our separate ways because we all stayed in the same area, like more or less, but there was a time period where I ended up moving a little further away from my social circle. And that's when the isolation truly started. It felt like I had been thrown into this solitude that I didn't know how to navigate. And this is where the initial discomfort came in, because now I was feeling lonely, I was feeling restless, but in addition to that, I felt unstable, not having constant activity, not constantly being around people, not always having external validation or, you know, somebody around to say like, oh, Malik's like a cool person. You know, it was a little weird. It was really during this period that I realized how much I relied on external validation and that constant activity, and it put me in a really weird place. We're not here for the whole boohoo part of the story. Like, that's not what this is about. We're just talking about the good side of isolation. So even though my isolation started off really sad, it became very intentional and very beneficial over time. Now that there was so much distance between me and my friends geographically, because we still talked every day, but like I couldn't get to be around them as much as I was used to. And with that happening, I ended up spending a lot of time with myself. There is a whole spiritual aspect to this story that I would probably save for another video, but just to like throw it all into one little small bubble, this led to me kind of going down this path of self-reflection and self-actualization, self-realization, kind of figuring out who I was. Being alone so much just really helped me to understand what I liked and what I didn't like, the type of people I wanted to associate myself with, the type of places that I enjoyed going to. Like, I really feel like I started to form an identity of my own for once. So in identifying these habits and thought process and reevaluating friendships and relationships, I've been in one relationship. After being removed from certain environments and situations, people, relationships, blah, blah, blah. After being removed from all of that, I was able to identify a lot of the things that were holding me back, a lot of limiting beliefs that I had. I started realizing all of the things that I needed to work on, and I started working on them. It was insane. I won't say that I've mastered working on a lot of the things that I realized needed to change, because even now I still find myself continuously growing, continuously evolving. One thing one of my friends always tells me is that growth is not linear. It is not one straight line. You don't start here and just go like and you're grown. No, it's not like that. It's a bit of a learning curve. It's some ups, some downs, but when you do take a little tumble, the main point is to not stay down there. You have to get back up, and that's where growth happens. There's some main lessons that I learned from isolation that I want to share. The first lesson is that your circle reflects your energy. Listen to me. You have to start recognizing which friendships are meaningful and which friendships are just surface level, because they're not the same. One of these friendships will help you to grow and to thrive, to become a better version of you. The other is completely I don't want to say completely pointless, but it has nothing to do with your growth. One of the best things that I could have done was compartmentalize. I sound like I don't know how to speak English. One of the best things that I could have done was learn to compartmentalize friendships. Not everybody is a meaningful friend. Not everybody has your best intentions at heart. And the reason why I say reflects your energy is because some friendships can be entirely draining. And I find that that's mostly with the surface level friendships. Those really one-sided relationships where you're just giving, and the other person is just constantly taking. They're taking your energy, the energy that you need to be glowing up. That's not beneficial to you at all. So you really do have to separate the meaningful friends from the surface level friends. I think this goes without saying. You spend more time with the meaningful friends. You have better conversation with meaningful friends. You can tell that they're very ambitious people. They also are striving to become a better version of themselves, and you're meant to motivate each other. If you're not motivating each other, then what are you doing? What do you talk about? What are you finding to talk about? And I'm not saying that every conversation with every friend needs to be some super deep philosophical conversation, because God knows, no, don't take life that seriously, but you still have to have those meaningful relationships. The second lesson that I learned is that you are your best company, or at least I'm my best company. I enjoy hanging out with myself so much more now. There is a certain joy that comes from being comfortable with yourself. I think I'm such great company. I think I'm very funny. I love that I'm very creative. I'm just calling off all of the things I love about myself now. I really enjoy the way my mind works, and sometimes I try to share that with people and they don't always get it, but it's okay. I get it, so that's what matters. I've become so incredibly introverted, but I will say that I do become extroverted when I'm comfortable around other people, so it's really 50-50 at this point. In the same breath, I don't want to say that I am entirely so comfortable with being with myself, because I can do it in a setting like this where I'm just in my room, in my sanctuary, but I still struggle with spending time alone when I'm in public settings, and that's one of the things that I really want to work on. One of my goals before the year ends is to take myself on a solo date, just enjoy that time with myself. I get a little bit wrapped up sometimes in thinking that other people might be perceiving me a certain way, but literally nobody cares. Nobody checking for you. I'm sorry. Nobody cares as much as you think they do. So that's what I keep telling myself. I just need to go and do me. And also there's a certain freedom that comes with not needing external validation. I remember needing everybody's opinions on lots of my decisions, even down to the Instagram pictures that I would post. Do you know how unhinged that is? I'm sorry if you do this and this might offend you a little bit, but it's a little bit unhinged to send all of your pictures to your friends and be like, okay, what do we think about this one? Do we like this pose? Like, what about the colors here? Like, it was a little, like, you don't need to do that. You're allowed to like a picture yourself, and if you like it, you share it. Who cares if other people likes it? But I will say though, that was a habit that I had that was really hard for me to break out of because I craved external validation so much. And so I wanted to know what other people thought were like the best decisions for me. But nobody knows what's best for me more than me. What? Like, make it make sense. I still find myself sending my photos to friends just to be like, which one should I make the cover? But I'm not asking you if I should post it or not, because I can post it if I like it. And I won't post it if I don't. Like, it's just so simple. Life could be so simple. We make things so much harder than they need to be. Another lesson that I learned from isolation is that the most growth happens in the quiet. It happens in the silence. When you remove all of those distractions and those external opinions and just all of the noise, you're allowed to focus in on what it is that you want out of life. And some of your biggest wins will come from that time of solitude, because now you know what it is that you want and you can work even harder to get it. When I think of the isolation period, I think of a butterfly. You know, you start off as this little caterpillar, you go into your cocoon, you isolate within your little cocoon, and when you come out, you're just this brand new, beautiful creature. I feel kind of corny and like a hippie, but like, it's true. You go through this metamorphosis during those times of solitude, and it's really so beautiful. Okay, I've given a little backstory on my isolation period. We talked about lessons that I've learned from isolation. Now I'm going to teach you how you can embrace isolation for your benefit and just become the best version of yourself. These are all going to be based on things that I did that I mentioned previously a little briefly, but now we're just going to go into a little bit more detail. One of the first things that I did when it came to embracing isolation, and I didn't even notice that I was doing it until I took a moment and, sat with it, but creating a routine. I personally cannot function efficiently without routines. I suspect that I have undiagnosed ADHD and so I need routines to function, but that's neither here nor there. So I've been incorporating new things into my daily routine that I feel just kind of help me to embrace isolation even more. Journaling was one of the first things that I started doing when I had gone into isolation, I guess. A therapist recommended journaling to me, and also I'd seen it in a lot of the content that I was consuming on YouTube. And so I started, and at first it felt a little bit weird to just be writing things out all the time. But like I said, I am a big yapper. So I realized that a lot of the things that I would be sharing or oversharing with friends, I just put down into a journal and expand and get all of my thoughts out onto paper. And it's the most therapeutic, refreshing thing ever. So incorporating that into a routine, and it doesn't have to be a super strict routine. You don't have to journal every single day of your life, but you do want to work on implementing it somehow. So I have a Notion template where I journal. I also have, I don't know where it is right now. I also have an actual journal that I write in physically. A little less so now because I don't like carrying it around with me so much, but on my phone I could just pop into Notion, or even notes, but I could pop into my Notion template and just type away, just yap. Always talking. I find that it's such a good way for me to process my thoughts, to evaluate where I'm at mentally. I can also go back and evaluate where I'm coming from. I haven't done this in a while actually, but there was a day where I went back and read some of my older entries, and just seeing where I started and where I was now, it was such a stark difference. And I was just so grateful that I had journaled it to even document it. So I obviously recommend journaling. And it doesn't have to be anything poetic or so you don't need to do all of that. It doesn't have to be Dear Diary. I have sections in my journals and on my Notion templates and everything where I just do little brain dumps. If I'm overthinking, I will type out or write out everything that pops up into my head. I don't care how trivial it is. I don't care how random it may seem. I could be thinking about pencils and I'd be like, oh yeah, 2 number 2 pencils. just clearing up space in my head. But brain dumps are really good. I think it's also important to spend time maybe revisiting old hobbies or finding new hobbies. I always enjoyed reading, and so sometimes embracing isolation for me could be replacing social media with reading. Since spending more time with myself, one of the things I discovered was that I want to work out more, but I hate the gym. I genuinely do not like going to the gym. I don't care. So what I needed to do was find hobbies that would allow me to be active. I ended up learning that I actually really like tennis. And so I started taking tennis lessons, and it was a great way for me to just explore a new hobby while also being active and working out my body, you know, all of that. I'm also learning that I have new passions when it comes to the type of hobbies that I'd like to get into. I've always been a very creative person. I just don't think I've always had the flexibility in terms of time or income to pursue all of the passions that I've wanted to. And so I find myself really drawn to a lot of creative things and wanting to explore each and every one of them. I do consider myself a bit of a multi-passionate person, and I have all intentions of exploring all of it because why not? I really enjoy activities that allow me to express creativity, and I think that's also why I enjoy modeling so much. I like when we do fun things that allow me to kind of slip into a new role. I get to put on new skin, essentially. A key factor to embracing isolation, you absolutely, I'm clapping because it's important. You have to learn to say no. You have to learn to set boundaries and to say no to draining social interactions. It's okay to say no. And I'm talking to myself here too, because this is something that I'm still working on. I still have trouble saying no sometimes, and it leaves me feeling so entirely drained. You have to set your boundaries and you have to stand on them. If you can't stand on your boundaries, people will run all over them and just completely take advantage of it. You have to stand on your boundaries. What's also really important is to prioritize quality over quantity when it comes to your friendships. I know I touched a little bit on having meaningful versus surface level friends. Now we're going to talk about the importance of having quality friends over the quantity that you have. You could have 1,000,000,001 friends and they could all be low vibrational. They could all be losers. In the same way that you want to focus on having meaningful relationships, you don't need so many of them. You can have a small circle and be completely fine with just that. As long as that small circle is of a high quality, unstoppable. So you just want to focus on having more high quality friends as opposed to just having a whole bunch of friends. Having a whole bunch of friends don't mean nothing to you. Like, that's not going to help you in the long run. Actually, I will say knowing a lot of people will help you. That's more networking. That's less friendship and more like business, but whatever. All of this is just to say that I think isolation can be one of the most beautiful things, especially as a foundation to glowing up. There are only so many days left in 2024, and you don't want to go into a new year doing the exact same thing. Those New Year's resolutions that everyone says they're going to start on January 1st and then like give up on by February 2nd, like the reason why you give up on them and why they don't stick is because you're trying to jump into everything cold turkey. I hate that term so badly. But what you should be doing is getting a head start on all of these from now. And it starts with evaluating where you are, where you want to be, and the steps that you need to take in order to get there. If you want to elevate, you have to separate yourself from the things that are preventing you from doing so. You have to strip away the noise of other people's expectations. You have to get rid of the distractions. You have to get rid of the limiting beliefs. And you really do need to just lock in, isolate, and evolve. It'll be one of the best decisions that you could possibly make. But that's it for this video. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that it helped you to recognize one of the most important parts of glowing up, of leveling up. I keep seeing everybody say that this is the winter arc and blah, blah, blah. This is the time when we're supposed to be focusing on becoming the best version of ourselves so that that's the version that we present in the new year. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Don't be shy in the comments. Like I said, I am such a big yapper. Maybe not when you meet me at first in person because I can be very anxious sometimes. I would actually really love to hear how you may have embraced isolation or even avoided it in the past, and maybe if you're okay with sharing it, something that you'd like to change for the new year. See you next time.